when Child Protective Services gets it wrong, they get it really wrong, and they fracture innocent families, and they're unwilling to acknowledge their mistakes. One of the things that we found just through our just extensive research, because I mean, when we first got involved in this type of work or first got involved in family policing cases, it took a lot of team members time to wrap their brains around certain things, right? Because you want to trust that Child Protective Services has the best interest of the child at heart. It's in their name, right? Child
That's
protection, right?
by its our nature, right? We wanna
Right.
believe there's good in people.
Right. And I'm not saying that Child Protective Services is not needed because there are parents and there are guardians who abuse their children. But when Child Protective Services gets it wrong, they get it really wrong, and they fracture innocent families, and they're unwilling to acknowledge their mistakes.
And by
They
the way,
would
right, I don't mean to interrupt, but what you just called out there is very important
Yeah,
because there is a very large subset of people who they'll say, "Oh, you don't like how X is done? Does that mean you don't want X done at all?" And that is such a goofball
yeah,
kindergarten way of thinking
yeah,
about things. So I'm very glad you called that out because
yeah,
it's not saying we're not saying that there shouldn't be a role here. It's like,
sure.
if you're gonna do that role, can we at least ask you do it well? Or at
Yeah,
least just
that's
don't
at
do
a
it
minimum.
poorly?
At a minimum, be good at that job, right? Just
Minor
that
details.
job right there, be good at that job.
Right.
And what we found was they were really not that good at their jobs.
Hmm.
And more and more families were being fractured, and they were having their children seized unnecessarily or prematurely. And this was not something that was isolated to Georgia just because that was one of the first cases that we got involved in. We kind of opened Pandora's box when we first got involved in Child Protective Services work because we found that it is emblematic of all Child Protective Services throughout the country, right? They were really and truly relying on this money, this federal funding to keep children in foster care. The vast majority of these federal funds that go into the state budgets were set aside to keep children in foster care, and a small portion was set aside for reunification. So there was no incentive once a child was seized and they realized a mistake was made for them to return that child.